But there are some consequences of your past that may come back. That you, because of reaping what you sow. I've seen it in my life, and you have too, if you'll be truthful and admit it. You've probably already seen some of that. If not, hold on. You just be patient. And I tell you, you reap, because it's an established law that none of us can get away from. You don't plant tomatoes and get corn, like I've said so many times. You don't plant tomatoes and get corn. You don't plant beans and get cucumbers. It just don't work that way. Whatever seed you sow, that's what's coming up. That's what you're going to reap, whatever seed is sowed. And so it works that same way in the natural, in the spiritual as well. Whatever a man sows, he said, Paul said in Galatians, God is not mocked. Don't be deceived. Don't fool yourself. God is not mocked. For whatsoever man sows, that shall he also reap. And Jesus himself said it, that you cast your bread upon the water, it's going to come back to you. And so what we sow, we will, at some juncture, at some point in time, we're going to reap that harvest. And so none of us can get away from that. Adonai Bezek recognized that way back here in the Old Testament. He said, well, I did these things, so now God he's repaid me for this. I've reaped what in essence what he's saying, I've reaped what I sowed. And so both the principle and the practice of this kind of cruel treatment, or other types of cruel treatment we can think of persons, it seems harsh, seems unjust. You know, to capture somebody and to rub the salt into the wound, cut the thumbs and the toes off as well. And that seems, and it is kind of harsh, and it seems kind of unjust to us on a lot of levels today. But keep in mind, that was probably all that an ancient developing culture needed. And listen, that's probably all that they were really ready for. And they probably, from their perspective at least anyway, it probably represented a step of progress towards civilization in their respects. And so I said all that to say this. What God reveals of himself and what God expects of a people depend in part on where people are in their development and what they are capable of understanding at that point. God works with them at that level that they're on. And he proceeds to lead them to the level of understanding that he wants them to have. He tries to lead them to that level of that and progress to that level of understanding he wants them to have. Because God knows that we're fallen men, we're fallen people. And so he meets us on the level where we are to try to advance us to where he needs for us to get to. I'm going somewhere with this, so hang on, pay close attention to what I'm saying. It is part of God's graciousness towards us that he accommodates himself to us in that fashion. It's important. It is very important that we understand, especially in the day that we live in now. We need to understand this principle in the day that we live in now, because we're living in a day when we have this silly craze of tearing down statues and of ripping down artwork and portraits of history in the attempt to erase history. It's a silly notion. And we have to keep in mind, first of all, there's no way you're going to change actual history. I don't care how many statues you tear down or how many portraits you snatch down or anything else. There is no way you're going to change what happened. That ain't going to change. I've said before, and I'll say it again, God won't even change your history. He'll forgive it, but he ain't going to change it. Now, when God forgives your past, yes, to him, he casts it out of his memory. He does not remember it against us anymore. When it's under the blood of Jesus, he forgives it. God does indeed forget it. And he puts it behind. We have a problem forgetting it when God does it. And God forgives our past, but God will not change that past. That's why we reap what we sow sometimes. That established law. So, we've been forgiven. Our past is behind us. It's past. God has forgiven it. As far as God's concerned, it never even happened. But he will not change our past. You know, we've said before, we thought before that, you know, most of us, if we had access to some kind of time machine, Time travel will never happen. I don't care how much science fiction is written about it, how much and there's people who are even seriously looking into these things now, and seriously thinking they can find a time warp or some type of things like that. That's crazy. I know there's things that have happened that before we said was crazy and they ended up happening anyway. But there's things that we do today that 30 years ago even 10, 20 years ago, people never thought would happen, and they did. But I'm telling you this, the ability to travel back or forward in time will never happen. That will never happen. Because God established laws of time and space that can never be broken. The only one who can break those laws is God.